Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha.
Shri Chaitanya
Shri
Manobhishtam
Chaitanya
Stapitam yena bhutale
Manobhishtam
Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Kadati Swapadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are going to be continuing from the paragraph that starts with he does not advise Arjuna simply to remember him. I've got it on page number 25, so it's quite at the end of the introduction. Has everyone reached there? Okay, so what we'll do today is we're going to try and cover a big chunk of the, the introduction to them. So I'll just read the first paragraph and then the later paragraphs I will speak as and when the points come up. Okay? So let's start. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. He does not advise Arjuna simply to remember him. This is Krishna. Krishna does not advise Arjuna to simply remember him and give up his occupation. No, the Lord never suggests anything impractical. In this material world, in order to maintain the body, one has to work. Human society is divided according to work into 4 divisions of social order: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. The Brahmana class or intelligent class is working in one way. The Kshatriya or administrative class is working in another way. And the mercantile class and the laborers are all tending to their specific duties. In the human society, whether one is a laborer, merchant, administrator, or farmer, or even if one belongs to the highest class and is a literary man, a scientist, or a theologian, He has to work in order to maintain his existence. The Lord therefore tells Arjuna that he need not give up his occupation, but while he is engaged in his occupation, he should remember Krishna, Mam Anusmara. If he does not practice remembering Krishna while he is struggling for existence, then it will not be possible for him to remember Krishna at the time of death. Lord Chaitanya also advises this. He says, Kirtanya Sada Hari. One should practice chanting the names of the Lord always. The names of the Lord and the Lord are non-different. So Lord Krishna's instruction to Arjuna to remember me and Lord Chaitanya's injunction to Krishna are the same instruction. There is no difference because Krishna and Krishna's name are non-different. In the absolute status, there is no difference between reference and reference. Therefore, we have to practice remembering the Lord always, 24 hours a day, by chanting His names and molding our life's activities in such a way that we can remember Him always. Okay. So, the one point that I want to bring out here, I'm going to speak on 5 main points in today's class. 5 main points. The first point is this, that there is no difference between Krishna and his name. Okay? So in the material world, there is a difference between the reference and the referent. What does this mean? For example, there may be a picture of a man. So the picture of the man is a reference. But the picture is not the man himself. The man is known as the referent, while the picture of the man is a reference of that man. But the picture and the man are different, right? They're not the same. So, this is because the actual person is different from the material designations. Yeah? The picture is a material object, and the body also is a material object. But he is actually a spirit soul. So when a person is got a material frame, automatically there is a concept of duality. There is me and then there is mine, right? We don't say I body or I. We say my body, my I, my hand. So this concept of mine, this concept of possession can only come about when that possession is distinct from you. It's different from you. There is a break. We don't say that I house. We say it is my house. So when you come into a material level, there is already a distinction. There is already a breakage. So there's a difference between the reference, which is any object like your mobile phone, your house or anything, and the referent, which is you. This belongs in the material world. But in the spiritual world, there is no difference. Because everything in the spiritual world is working on an absolute level. Means there's no difference between what is mine and me. Yeah? Krishna belongs in that absolute level. So for him, when we discuss Krishna's name, or we discuss Krishna's pastimes, or we discuss Krishna himself, there's no difference at all. Right? There is no difference because everything is transcendental. Everything is on the spiritual level. Everything is on the absolute level. So this is a difference. Just like here in this material world, if we are thirsty, just by saying water, water, our thirst is not going to be quenched. For us to quench our thirst, we need to physically drink water. Right? But Krishna's name is not like that. You can keep on taking Krishna's name for decades and decades, and yet you will not get tired. Imagine singing the same song, one of your favorite songs that you have, for 24 hours a day on repeat. Just keep on singing that song. How long will you be able to sing the song? You cannot sing for so long. But yet we see people are chanting the same Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this is going on for years and years and years. And yet no one is getting tired of it. Right? So what does this show? This shows that Krishna's name is transcendental. It's not like any ordinary name that you find in this material world. It is transcendental. You can keep on going, it's ever fresh. Yes? And when you say Krishna's name, Krishna is actually there on in your tongue. He's dancing in your tongue. Yeah? If you call out your son's name, does the son come and dance on your tongue? No. So this is a spiritual realm. We don't have any experience of it, but we can still have a bit experience through chanting of Krishna's name. And we've seen this, it works. We have seen many people giving their whole life in just chanting this one mantra, and they're finding so much joy in it. Now imagine singing the same thing, how much joy will it give you? After some time, you'll be like, this is causing me anxiety. I don't want to hear this song for the rest of my life. After you're hearing it for like on repeat for like maybe 1 day, 2 days. This is what happens. This is practical. We have seen practical realization of this. Yeah? So, the question then comes is, one should keep on chanting Krishna's name because it is not different from Krishna himself. So when Krishna says in the Gita, remember me and continuously chant my names, which is instruction of Lord Chaitanya, we are actually the same because there's no difference between Krishna himself and Krishna's names. Okay? But one must keep on chanting Krishna's name not whimsically, but under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Doing this, one purifies himself, meaning he purifies his consciousness, and thus comes to Krishna at the end of life because that is what he has cultivated throughout his life. And that is the purpose of 8.6, the verse that we read before. That the whole point is that whatever you think at the end of life is a destination that you will achieve. And what does that mean? Is that whatever consciousness that is dominant in your inner being, that will determine where you go. Okay? So that can only happen by repeated practice, by repeated chanting, repeated efforts being put to put Krishna at the forefront of our consciousness. And this is what ISKCON does. It's called the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That we want to fill our consciousness with full of Krishna, and to help us do that, we have an entire society of practitioners to do that. If you break down the acronym of ISKCON into two words, is KC on? So the question is your Krishna consciousness on? Is it ISKCON or is it ISK off? Yeah? We have to keep on answering this question to ourselves. Is our consciousness fully on towards Krishna? Okay? So that was the first point. So the first point is that there is no difference between Krishna and his name. The second point is that we must cultivate remembrance of Krishna while living. As we said, that you can only cultivate the consciousness while you're living in this world. You cannot do it at the fag end of your life. It has to be a practice. Yeah? Now this is because if we do not cultivate remembrance while living, how can we remember Krishna at the critical moment of death? But the question arises, how can cultivation happen when we are surrounded by so many engagements and duties in life? You might say, oh, we are so busy. We've got so many duties to do. I'm a family man. I've got children to raise. I've got a business to manage. How can I cultivate time for Krishna consciousness? To cultivate Krishna consciousness. Now, what Prabhupada says in the next paragraph, he is giving an example. So let's read the next paragraph. He said, how is this possible? The Acharyas give the following example. If a married woman is attached to another man, or if a man has an attachment for a woman other than his wife, then the attachment is to be considered very strong. One with such an attachment is always thinking of the loved one. The wife who is thinking of her lover is always thinking of meeting him, even while she is carrying out her household chores. In fact, she carries out her household work even more carefully so her husband will not suspect her attachment. Similarly, we should always remember the Supreme Lover Shri Krishna and at the same time perform our material duties very nicely. A strong sense of love is required here. If we have a strong sense of love for the Supreme Lord, then we can discharge our duty and at the same time remember Him. But we have to develop the sense of love. Arjuna, for instance, was always thinking of Krishna. He was a constant companion of Krishna, and at the same time, he was a warrior. Krishna did not advise him to give up fighting and go to the forest to meditate. When Lord Krishna delineates the yoga system to Arjuna, Arjuna says that the practice of this system is not possible for him. Okay? So, Prabhupada has got a very nice example here. That yes, we can and we must balance our material duties and engagements, but at the same time make time for cultivating Krishna consciousness. Because there are certain things that are so important that you cannot afford not to do it. Yeah? If you want to go from here to Nairobi, you have to make sure that there's petrol in the car. How can you start the journey without checking if there's petrol in the car? It's such an essential task that maybe you don't even need to know it, or you might not even have it in the checklist. But it is essential to have that done, right? If you've got an exam coming up, you don't start studying the night before the exam. You start studying a week or two before the exam because you know that I have a final responsibility that's coming up at the end of the year, and I need to prepare for that from now. It's not that I can just do it at the end moment. How much will it happen? And plus, you'll be so in a state of so much frustration and anxiety that you'll not be able to even focus that well, right? So you have to make time for things that are very important. And at the end, what is the most important aim of life? Is to connect to Krishna, to go back to Krishna. So that should be the main aim, and your entire life should be uh, designed in such a way that that is the central goal. Then everything else will follow that central goal, and then you'll be able to make your life perfect. Okay? Without having a center point, you'll just go round and round and round, and you'll be always troubled, like, oh my God, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to do that. But if you have the center point that, oh, I need to strive for this goal, then everything else can become subservient to that goal. Yeah, you'll be able to mold all your life according to that goal. Yeah, just like as I said, if you've got an exam coming up, then you will be able to better plan how to utilize your day, and how to say that, okay, I need to go to school from this time to this time, then I need to come home, I need to eat, I need to rest, I need to then study for this to this time. So if you have that goal in your head that this is something that I need to get done, then you'll be able to plan your entire time frame between now and that time, right? So you need to have that one goal in your life, and that is ultimately is what? To attain Krishna prema, to attain Krishna. So if you have that goal, you'll be able to mold your life towards that goal. Okay? So, but Prabhupada said that for us to be able to mold our life in such a way, it requires a deep sense of love. Yeah? So we see that we have to perform our material duties so well, but always with the thought of Krishna at the back of our mind. So this example shows that the example of a spouse having attraction for an outsider, right? If they want to meet that person, they have to make sure that they do all their duties very well, so that they can make some time and avoid suspicion, so that they can go and meet their lover, right? So it requires a very strong attraction. So that's also what we need to do for Krishna. We need to have such a strong love for Krishna that we'll be able to make time apart from our daily struggles, apart from our daily life, apart from our daily duties, to make some time for Krishna. Now, how is it that we can always think of Krishna at the back of our mind while engaged in our worldly duties? So there are two examples. The first example is as a parent. When the parent goes to the supermarket and is browsing for getting stuff for day to day running of the house, and they see a nice toy, where does the imagination already go? Towards the child. The child is nowhere near him. But but while the parent is going to the supermarket, at the back of the mind, the parent is thinking, oh, my child will like this. Oh, my child will like that. Oh, my child will like this. So that's one example. Another example is that there was once upon a time where there was a king by the name of King Janak. Now, all the Brahmanas in the kingdom were in awe of King Janak because he was considered to be a Raja Rishi, meaning he was considered to be a very saintly king and a very exalted devotee. And so all the Brahmanas wanted to question King Janak. How is it that you, being a Kshatriya, are able to be a very great devotee? How is it that you are able to do your kingly duty so well and at the same time are able to be so engaged in worshipping Krishna? And so King Janak said, I can answer you this question, but for that you come for lunch tomorrow. I will host you for lunch. And so the Brahman said, okay, because they really wanted to know how to become absorbed in Krishna Prem. So they all came the next day for lunch. And when they came into the dining hall, they saw there was a lavish preparation and they were all sitting nicely. And then they started to tremble. Why did they start to tremble? Because they saw that above where they were sitting were so many swords hanging by a thin thread. And now the Brahmanas are like, okay, are we going to die here or what? Yeah, what is this king trying to do? He's invited us for lunch, or is he invited us to our own death? So now they said, and then the king Janak came and welcomed them very well. And said, please sit, please sit. And they said, yes, we will sit. But what about all the swords? What is up with this? He said, you trust me, don't you? I'm not going to harm any of you. Just sit, it's all safe. It is all safe. So the Brahmana said, okay, let's sit. And they started having the food. But instead of having the food and enjoying with a lot of pleasure, where was their mind? It's on the sword. And so at the end of the entire meal, the sword was intact. Nothing happened. And as they were leaving, then the Brahmana said, okay, so what is our answer to the question? Our question, you've not answered us. And so King Janak said, okay, while you were eating, where was your mind? Was it on the food or was it on the sword? He said, on the sword. Yes, but that did not stop you from doing your eating, did it? No, it did not. So this is how I do it. I do my kingly duties, but my mind is always at the feet of Krishna. Just like how your mind was always on the sword, even while you were eating and doing your material activity, the same way, while I do my kingly duties, my mind is always at the feet of Lord Krishna. So this is a very nice story that shows us how we can always keep that one level focus as to what is our goal in life, and then still do our entire duties in this world, but still be aware of our final goal. Okay? So now some people might be thinking, okay, this is a very good story, but it's not very practical, is it? Many people think it's a very impractical thing. How can you think of something and do something? It's going to cause a loss of concentration in your material duty. How can you do this? But the good thing is, third point now, that the Lord never suggests anything impractical. Yeah? So Krishna had actually established the perfect social order which ensured that one could cultivate both material and spiritual life together in a progressive manner. Right? As Prabhupada said, that human society is divided according to work into four divisions of social order: Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya and Shudra. Right? So, Krishna had given a perfect society order such that if you follow this order, then there is progressive life in both a material sense and as well as in a spiritual sense. Yes? Because we have got a certain nature, we are all not born equal. Some people are born with certain skills, another person is born with another talent, and as they go to school, people develop different skills and different talents. So no two people in this world are the same. We need all types of people in this world. And so even all the types of work in this world are also divided into these four categories. And the people need to be engaged in the work that situates themselves perfectly in their nature. And then what happens? When you are situated in work which is according to your nature, that work is actually beneficial in a spiritual sense. Because what happens if you are not situated according to your nature? What happens if you're not situated according in work which is not according to your nature? It is you'll be very tired, you'll feel like you're not making any progress in life, you'll feel like going to work is a chore, you're looking forward to the weekend just to get a break from work. How many of you think that this is a problem that is affecting most of the world right now? Right? It's because we are not being engaged in work that is according to our nature. Right? What happens if you are? Then you'll feel like you are enjoying that work doesn't feel like work. Yeah? It feels like play. You're not going to get uh, be energized by doing that work. In fact, that work gives you inner happiness. Yeah? If you do not work according to your nature, then what happens is you're trying to find happiness through the results of that work, through the money that you get from that work, through the influence you can get from that work. Inside your heart, you'll not be happy doing that work, or you'll not be comfortable doing that work. But you'll be like, oh, I'm getting so much money. So you're putting your self-worth on the results of that work. But then what happens is if you work according to your nature, then you do not get satisfaction from the result of that work. You just get satisfaction from doing that work. So it's easier for you to get detached from that work because you're not getting external validation from that work. You're just getting internal validation. The work is a reflection of your actual being, right? So like there could be two people. The two people are running a restaurant, two different restaurants. One person is running the restaurant because he's getting it profitable, and another person is running a restaurant because he enjoys cooking so much. It's like he's not too worried about the monetary aspect. Who will be more successful in the end? Yes? Who will have a richer life? I'm not saying more money. Who will have a richer life? Second one. Why? Because it is according to his nature to do that work. And he can get so detached. And because he can be detached more easily from that work, he's able to remember Krishna easier. So this is a science. The science was that the society that was done by Krishna, was designed by Krishna, was conducive for our material needs, and at the same time, it was conducive for our spiritual needs. Okay? So, this social order was originally meant to promote spirituality and focus on the ultimate aim of life, that is to attain Krishna Prem, by which we go back to Krishna's abode and thus liberate ourselves from the material world. But now, what has happened is that this knowledge has been misinterpreted and misapplied, and thus the system has become distorted by the materialistic mindset of the current times. Yeah? Now, the system is in place, and we know it has to have a progressive nature. But what causes it to be of a progressive nature? What causes it to be of a progressive nature is the yoga systems. When you focus on the different yoga systems, then you can progress in your spiritual life as well as in your material life. So, what does the word yoga mean? Yoga basically means to connect, to link. To link to who? To Krishna. Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish ki jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shri Gaunitaya ki jai. Yeah? So, to achieve this progressive life, the social order was devised with various yoga paths to reach that goal. What is the goal? What is the goal, ultimate goal of the Varnashram system? To connect with Krishna, right? So, what are the different yoga paths that are given in the scriptures? Huh? Which are the paths? Yoga, that's karma yoga. Then Gyan yoga, Dhyan yoga, yeah, Bhakti yoga, right? So all these different yoga paths, they are described by Krishna in the Gita. But then which one does he recommend? He recommends Bhakti yoga, right? Even Arjuna, when he heard all the different types of yoga systems, what did he say? Let's read ahead. It says, so Krishna did not advise him to give up fighting and go to the forest to meditate. When Lord Krishna delineates the yoga system to Arjuna, Arjuna says that the practice of this system is not possible for him. Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya prokta samyena madhusudana etasyamam na pashyami chanchala vad stitam stiram. Arjuna said, "O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and undurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady." But the Lord says, Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten atmaram shraddhavan bachate yomam same yuktat tamo mataha. Of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service, to me is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So, one who thinks of the Supreme Lord always is the greatest yogi, the supermost jnani, and the greatest devotee at the same time. The Lord further tells Arjuna that as a Kshatriya he cannot give up his fighting. But if Arjuna fights remembering Krishna, then he'll be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. But one must be completely surrendered in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Okay? So here it says that when a person is engaged in the path of Bhakti Yoga, he gets the benefit of all other yogas. It says here that is He is the greatest yogi, the supermost jnani, and the greatest devotee at the same time. Not at different times, at the same time. So it just goes to show that the Bhakti Yoga is the highest yoga. And actually all other yoga paths, they find their perfection in Bhakti Yoga. Right? So now the question is, how does the Bhakti Yoga path even work? So let's read ahead. We work not with our body actually, but with our mind and intelligence. So if the intelligence and the mind are always engaged in the thought of the Supreme Lord, then naturally the senses are also engaged in His service. Okay? So now our actions that we perform in our life, they are based on what our consciousness is like. Yeah? And our consciousness is shaped by the impressions that are imprinted upon them by the mind and the intelligence. So how are impressions formed on the consciousness through the mind? So our mind is always craving entertainment and it is always seeking pleasure. Sometimes, even when we are trying to seek pleasure, we do not even consider the consequences. The consequences are ignored. For the primary purpose is to get pleasure. The mind is always looking for this moment. The mind is always looking for pleasure. So whatever gives it pleasure, it will go for it. If you do not control your mind, the mind controls you, and the mind will drag you to wherever it will find pleasure. But now we need to control this mind through the intelligence. So once we are informed about the consequences of any action that we want to perform and can understand them wholly and practically how this is going to affect me in an adverse way, then our intelligence is also shaping our consciousness. Saying that, okay, the mind is telling you to go to this way, to go and steal. But then the intelligence will act as a barrier, saying that, no, the mind wants to go and steal because if it steals this product, you will enjoy. But intelligence will stop the mind. And so the intelligence will inform your consciousness that don't do this. This is not right. You are going to suffer if you do this action. So both the mind and the intelligence, they shape the consciousness, which in turn shape the actions you perform, which in turn shapes the reactions you get. You see the link? So if we purify our mind and if we purify our intelligence, both, then what happens is our consciousness automatically becomes purified. And when our consciousness is already purified, then when we interact with the world, we will interact in a very, very different way. Although sometimes that activity might seem the same from the outside, but the way you approach that activity is completely different. Right? So, how can you understand this? Have you seen a cat? A cat will catch a rat through its mouth, and the cat will also carry the kitten by its mouth. But there is a vast difference. When the cat is holding the kitten by its mouth, the kitten is not scared because the mother is showing love that way. But for the rat, the same mouth is death personified, because the cat's thinking is what? To eat the rat, not to eat the kitten. Right? Another example, a spiritualist also eats and a materialist also eats. But there is a vast difference in what is the consciousness behind why they're eating and how they're eating. The materialist is eating for sense pleasure, but the spiritualist is eating because he is honoring Krishna Prasadam. He is honoring the remnants of the food offered to Krishna. Right? So the activity is the same, But the consciousness is completely different, right? Or a more crude example, that there is a parent and then there is a pedophile. Yeah, both of them will give a lollipop to the child, but when the father is giving a lollipop to the child, it is out of pure love, and and it's very pure. While when a pedophile is offering a lollipop to the child, it is full of lust. It's full of the consciousness of trying to abuse the child. So the action might look the same on the outside, giving a lollipop, but the intention inside will definitely show what is the difference in the reaction and difference in the consequence. So, sorry. So let's read ahead. Superficially, at least, the activities of the senses remain the same, but the consciousness is changed. The Bhagavad Gita teaches one how to absorb the mind and intelligence in the thought of the Lord. Such absorption will enable one to transfer himself to the kingdom of the Lord. If the mind is engaged in Krishna's service, then the senses are automatically engaged in his service. This is the art, and this is also the secret of Bhagavad Gita, total absorption in the thought of Sri Krishna. So this is very, very important, that this is the art. This is what Bhagavad Gita is trying to tell us. Bhagavad Gita is a journey of trying to change our consciousness from a selfish way to a completely selfish way and giving it all to Krishna. Okay? Now, this art has to be learned under the guidance of an experienced person. Tad vignartam sa gurum eva vikachat. One must approach a person who is already in the practice. The mind is always flying to this and that, but one must practice concentrating the mind always on the form of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna or on the sound of his name. Okay? So this is what he says ahead. That modern man has struggled very hard to reach the moon, but he has not tried very hard to elevate himself spiritually. If one has 50 years of life ahead of him, he should engage that brief time in cultivating this practice of remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This practice is a devotional process. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dashyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. These 9 processes, of which the easiest is Shravanam, hearing the Bhagavad Gita from the realized person, will turn one to the thought of the Supreme Being. This will lead to remembering the Supreme Lord and will enable one, upon leaving the body, to attain a spiritual body which is just meant for association with the Supreme Lord. The Lord further says, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chetasa Nanya Gamina Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Parama Partha Anuchintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Arjuna, is sure to reach me. This is not a very difficult process. However, one must learn this from an experienced person. Tad vignartam sa gurum eva vigachyat. One must approach a person who is already in the practice. The mind is always flying to this and that, but one must practice concentrating the mind always on the form of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna or on the sound of his name. The mind is naturally restless, going hither and thither, but it can rest in the sound vibrations of Krishna. One thus meditate on Paramam Purusham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual kingdom, the spiritual sky, and thus attain him. The ways and the means for ultimate realization, ultimate attainment, are stated in the Bhagavad Gita, and the doors of this knowledge are opened for everyone. No one is barred out. All classes of men can approach Lord Krishna by thinking of him, for hearing and thinking of him are possible for everyone. And this comes to the last part, that no one is barred from doing this process. Everyone has the right to do this process. Krishna is very, very liberal. As he says in 9:32 to 33, Mam hi parthavya pashritya ye api shu papa yonaya striyo vaishyastata shudras te api yanti param gatim kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajas sayas tatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Thus the Lord says that even a merchant, a fallen woman or a laborer, or even human beings in the lowest status of life can attain the supreme. One does not need highly developed intelligence. The point is that anyone who accepts the principles of Bhakti Yoga and accepts the Supreme Lord as the summum bonum of life, as the highest target, the ultimate goal, can approach the Lord in the spiritual sky. If one adopts the principles enunciated in Bhagavad Gita, he can make his life perfect and make a permanent solution to all the problems of life. This is the sum and substance of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Right? So, Krishna does not say that only a person who has got $1,000,000 can access me. No, he does not say that. He does not say that you have to be the smartest person in the world to be able to understand me. No, that is not possible. What is possible and what is required? Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish ki jai, Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shri Gaurikaya ki jai. What does Krishna want? Krishna doesn't want any material caliber. What he is looking for is spiritual purity. He is looking at how pure your character is. That is what's going to attract him. Nothing else is going to attract him. Neither your intelligence, neither your beauty, neither your power, neither your money. Nothing of this sort is going to attract him. What will attract him is our purity. And this purity can be cultivated by anyone. It can be cultivated by anyone. Because the truth cannot be complicated. Truth means it is universal, it is applicable, it is accessible to everyone. And so Krishna is accessible to everyone. He does not hide himself. But if you try to cheat him, if you try to play games with him, he is also the greatest cheater. He is also the greatest gambler. You cannot outwit him. So the only way you can attract him is by our simplicity. And that is why they say that the kingdom of God belongs to the humble and meek. Right? So Krishna, we are all Krishna's parts and parcels, and he loves us all very equally. He shows no partiality. But to those who take up the path of Bhakti Yoga to connect with him, he becomes more active in their life, and he makes their life more beautiful and reciprocative. He works constantly to guide us back to him, and it does not matter what our material caliber is. What he cares about is our simple and pure devotion. And just to highlight this, and in the spirit of the upcoming festival of Ram Navami, let me give you a small example of how Krishna, when he came as Lord Rama, showed that all he cares about is pure, simple devotion. Okay? In the Ramayana, from what I know, is that Lord Ram's feet were washed 3 times. Okay? The first time that Lord Rama's lotus feet were washed was during the Swayamvar by Maharaj Janak. Now, when Maharaj Janak was washing Lord Ram's feet, he was having golden pots, golden vessels, and pure water to wash Lord Ram's feet. And he was doing it with so much bhav, and Lord Ram accepted that. Second time that Lord Ram's feet were washed was with Kevat. Now, Kevat did not have golden pots, he did not have golden vessels. He just had a wooden bowl and he had Ganga Jal. And so he washed the lotus feet of Lord Ram with that wooden vessel and Ganga Jal, and he was so in ecstasy while he was washing that Lord Ram accepted it. And the third episode of when Lord Ram's lotus feet were washed was with Shabri. Now Shabri did not have anything. She didn't even have a proper seat for Lord Ram. There was just like a stump of a cut tree, and she set Lord Ram on that stump. And she did not have water, so where did she bring the water out from? From her tears of love. She washed Lord Ram's feet, putting his feet on her lap, and washing Lord Ram's feet with tears of love. Look at the externals: golden pot, golden vessel, pure water, to wooden pot, wooden vessel, and Ganga Jal, and to just a lap and tears of love. And he accepted all three of them. He did not make any distinction, because it does not matter what your material, external qualities and possessions you have. What actually matters is the love that you carry in your heart. And that is all that matters to Krishna. So that's what we need to cultivate. And this entire knowledge of the Gita is meant for that purpose only. It is meant to develop pure, simple, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotion to Lord Krishna. And that is how we can attract the all attractive. That is how we can conquer the unconquerable. So, with this, I think we'll only have one more session on the Gita, which is just describing the Gita Mahatmaya, the glories of the Gita, before we start with chapter 1, text number 1. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.